so we can go ahead and get started. We'll start today's meeting with our call to order and introductions. I think, Gordon, I don't know that we need to do introductions for this. You've checked on anyone new to this meeting that doesn't typically attend?
You may want to have Kelly introduce himself. He's a new representative from Phoenix who wasn't here at the last meeting.
Okay, fantastic. Kelly, I hate to do this to you, but we're going to ask if you'll turn your camera on for at least a minute if you have access to that. While you introduce yourself, let us know a little bit about yourself.
Sure, let me just turn this video on here.
Kelly, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a civil engineer 3 here at the City of Phoenix. I'm in the vertical project management group. I'm also I've been in charge of our City of Phoenix supplementals to MAG, which we've been working on for, well, what do you think, Gordon, about 2 years now? It seems like it's been going on for a while. So we should be wrapping that up. Our last revision was actually in 2015 to our supplementals to the MAG standards. So we'll be getting that out hopefully in a month or 2 here. Eric just needs to sign off and get some approvals, and then so we're doing the standard details, and then next step we're going to work on the specifications to the supplementals. We'll be getting hopefully the standard details out, and appreciate the invite to the meeting, and look forward to working with everybody today. So
great, thank you, Kelly, and we appreciate you being a part of our committee. If there's nothing else on that, I think we've can move on to item number 2, the call to the audience. An opportunity will be provided to members of the public to provide input through written comment to the standard specifications and details committee on items that are not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of MAG, or on items on the agenda for discussion but not for action. Members of the public are asked to submit written comments related to this meeting through the MAG website at www.azmag.gov/comment and indicate for which meeting the comment is intended. Comments may be sent at any time leading up to the meeting, but must be received at least 1 hour prior to the post start time for the meeting. Comments received prior to the deadline will be read aloud during the meeting. Comments must not exceed 3 minutes in length. A total of 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda item, unless the chair of the Standard Specifications and Details Committee requests an exception to this limit. Please note that comments received for agenda items posted for action will be read at the time the item is heard. To attend the meeting by technological means, members of the public may access the link to watch a video stream on the MAG website by clicking on the view and listen link provided under the related links section at the listed email address there. Gordon, did we have any comments from the public for this meeting?
No, we have not.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And we don't have any members of the public in attendance unless they're streaming it.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. We'll move on to item number 3 on our agenda then. Approval of the January 5th, 2022 meeting minutes. Hopefully you've had a chance to review those. Typically Gordon will share that and we can take a minute, he'll scroll through and we can take a minute and just look for anything, and if there's any additional comments, let us know. And after a couple minutes, we'll entertain a motion on that. Okay. Thank you, Gordon. Those are some detailed notes. A lot of pages. Did anyone have any comments from previously reviewing those or from our scroll through at this time? And if not, I'll entertain a motion on the minutes.
Ryan, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Carl, did someone have a comment or was that another
There's
motion?
a second.
Okay. Thank you. Gordon, can we go through the roll call?
Yeah, could I get the second again?
Carl.
Carl, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Avondale,
Yay.
Buckeye,
Buckeyes, yay.
Chandler,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Glendale,
Yes.
Goodyear,
Yes.
Maricopa County,
Yes.
Mesa,
Yes.
Peoria,
Yes.
Phoenix,
Yes.
Yes.
2 yeses. Scottsdale,
Yes.
Surprise,
Yes.
Tempe,
Yes.
and Youngtown.
Yes.
The gang's all here.
It's been a while since we've had everyone, I think, right? That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 4, which is our staff report. Gordon, if you want to provide that for us.
Sure. Sorry, go back to the agenda. There's just a couple things. The 2022 revision, I mentioned last time that it's on our website, and I've included the links to it. It's also been added to the publications page, since a lot of people, I guess, were finding it there. And then also the printed books can also be purchased online, and the link is also included right there in the agenda. So that's really all I had.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions on that from the committee?
Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention is that the AutoCAD zip file was missing some of the new details when it was first posted in January. So that's been updated. If you happen to download the details zip file around our first meeting, then you should probably download it again to make sure you get all the latest details.
Okay, let's move on to item number 5 on the agenda, case number 21-14, the revised landscaping specifications. And I know that the working group has been working diligently on that, addressing some of the comments. I got a little bit of an update from one of the staff members here at the City of Mesa that's working on that. But Peter, you might have the latest information for us if you want to walk us through that.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Ryan. Yes, so the working group, the subgroup that's been working on this, the landscape architects and landscape folks, have been working on comments they have received. There's not many. They did receive some from the city of Tempe, which they'll be working on and providing a resolution to them. They had a meeting, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, about a week ago, and they'll be discussing it and getting those resolutions. The goal right now is to go ahead and make those changes to it, update anything. And this applies, by the way, for both 2114 and 2115, so we can just combine them into one discussion. So they're working on both the details and the specification language. Any change they make, the plan right now is to, in the March meeting, is to provide updated revisions based on any comments received to date. We, of course, would encourage any more comments to come on in, would be great. Otherwise, we felt we have to start asking if that once we get this out, we have to start looking for kind of a hard point of saying, maybe we received all the comments and that's going to be it, and start looking toward an actual vote on the cases. So if there's any questions or any more you want to go through on that, we could do so at this time.
I'll echo that, Peter, that once the comments are in, we'll take one more round and offer a chance for review. And if there's no comments after the March meeting, by the April meeting, I would propose that by May, we just vote on it and wrap the case up.
Okay.
So does anyone on the committee have any questions or comments or any discussion items on either case 2114 or case 2115, the landscaping specifications or landscaping details? Okay, is there anyone that feels like they still need to get more staff input from their agency and haven't had that chance to do that yet?
Ryan, you can put me on that list. I do need to do that internally. I'm going to do that today.
Okay, thank you, Warren.
Yes, same here.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, so yeah, there should be, like we said, an update coming in March, but if you do have comments prior to that, please send them in and we'll try to get them incorporated before that version comes out. And let's move forward in that direction. So I think that takes care of cases 5 and 6. I'm sorry, items 5 and 6 on the agenda. And we can move on to item number 7, the miscellaneous corrections. I think since our last meeting, we've determined we wanted to add a couple cases. They're listed there. So we've got 3 items right now listed under miscellaneous corrections. First is section 725.7.2. And let's see here. Remind us what this one is, Gordon.
Pretty simple. It's an extra word "and."
Oh, okay.
And I don't know. It's been there since 2009, since we made the revision in 2009. So I found it by accident the other day. So I thought, well, we better fix that.
A happy little accident, right?
You
Okay, so just removing "and" from that sentence so that it makes grammatical sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
and he included the 2009 version where it is done correctly. For some reason, an "and" creeped in the 2010 revision.
Okay, and then the next item on our miscellaneous corrections. This is an update on this standard detail shown 534-4. The ASTM reference is the former format for listing that had the -83. So it's proposed to be revised from ASTM A-48-83 to the current format of A48. And then the next correction, similar, just on another detail here. Oh, except for this one, I guess, is ASTM A54, which is no longer published. No, it was revoked or rescinded or whatever the terminology is. And so we were looking to identify what the correct ASTM number is. And this is relative to galvanizing on these bollards. And so after looking at that, we believe the correct ASTM reference for that galvanization process is A123. So that's the proposed miscellaneous correction. Gordon's got A123 pulled up here for us. Standard specification for zinc hot dip galvanized coatings on iron and steel products. Anyone have questions or comments on that or any of the other miscellaneous corrections we've talked about?
For both of those details, I did include the ASTM spec just so you could double check and make sure that you believe this would be the correct reference.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any other miscellaneous corrections that they would like to talk about while we're on this topic?
We did receive one from Roy after the packet went out. So I posted that on our website, and maybe he can discuss the changes he'd like here and whether you think this should be a miscellaneous correction or a separate case.
Great. Roy, if you want to talk us through this.
Certainly, Ryan. Thank you very much. And I apologize, I don't have a camera. But for those of you that know what I look like, that might be just as well. This was something that kind of came up from our inspection staff. This is our valve box installation and grade adjustment detail 391. And specifically in City of Scottsdale, we generally use the 391 type C for our adjustments. And the existing detail as it's shown, I kind of tried to cloud the area, shows a concrete collar being put around the valve box, irregardless of whether it's in a paved area or not, which is what the detail shows. But for the areas that are in unpaved areas, which is kind of the area that I kind of clouded there to the right, the detail that we've got shows 2 inches of dirt kind of covering the collar. And the issue that I'm trying to address with our inspectors and field staff is the valve box itself being covered up with dirt so they can't find it, or getting additional dirt inside the actual pipe there in the stem, and having issues with that. And so I was looking at seeing if we could just show instead of showing the dirt at the top of the collar, or of the top of the valve itself, actually show it at the top of the collar. So there's a 2 inch reveal essentially, or the collar goes from 2 inches from existing grade up to the top of the frame. And this would be similar to like what we already do on our mag concrete collars for like manholes. So that was kind of basically what I was looking at. And I thought maybe at one time, maybe that this might have been, the intent might have been for the existing grade to actually meet the collar. So you have a little bit of a reveal, so you don't have dirt just going right down the top there. And so that was the 391C. And then just as I was looking in the details, I went to the next detail, I think, which is 392. And all I did in that was the existing one, as you see, the type C again, and understand all this detail is just for the debris cap. That's all I think that we're trying to illustrate. But we're showing the different types as they actually exist. And for that type C, they do show the collar in the pavement in the area where you've got paved areas, but the other side, which I have clouded there, just shows dirt. And the only reason I was thinking of making a change here was just to be consistent with our 391C, to actually show the collar as we show it back on detail 391. So that this was kind of just a real minor thing that I saw. So that's basically it in a nutshell. The last sheet there, this just kind of shows the clouded area for as an example, for our detail 422, which is our manhole frame and cover adjustment, that we do show that 2 inch kind of reveal from basically from the top of the frame to the existing grade.
Thank you, Roy. I've got a question on those concrete collars in unpaved areas. Do the contractors typically build it with that curvilinear top slope as it is shown? Is that a common practice for it actually to get built that way? Anyone have thoughts on that?
I've never seen it done that way, so.
I can't say that I've seen it done that way either. I would think that it could just be a straight transition, kind of like what we show in the manhole adjustment. But yeah, I defer to others if they've actually seen it built that way.
This is Carl. I'm wondering about the 2 inch rise in a roadway. Is that Is that somewhat of a severe bump for traffic?
This isn't a landscape area.
Oh, it is?
This would be in an unpaved, correct? An
Not-
unpaved area,
Okay, not a unpaved road, though.
correct.
Okay.
Okay, I think there's some questions on first whether we want to implement this change or not. But if we were to implement this change, do people feel like this is a miscellaneous correction or is this a change in design concept that would be its own case?
I don't know, I'm kind of leaning towards a new case because it's not really a blooper where you're changing something that was intended one way. You know, just in practice, I would like to maybe think we go back just to making it the same as on the right side, just straight across, because, you know, with Google and everybody, it's a lot easier to find these valves if there's a little concrete around it, you know, from a aerial photographer, from an aerial photo. And you know, I don't think they get built this way with this little slope up anyway. So I'd just as soon go back to making it equal straight across, even in a landscape area, you know, just easier to find, you know, and then like it would keep the dirt away like Roy's concern is as well. So.
Well, and I'll just say that was part of the reason of wanting to have the 2-inch reveal. So you've got 2 inches for kind of a little bit of a buffer for dirt. Because I guess I'm just saying if you did build it straight across, your dirt would meet it straight across. So any whether with a leaf blower or anything else that would move the dirt, your collar would disappear or could disappear. That was kind of what I was thinking, was as far as having the reveal, that you would have, like you say, something that would actually show up, whether it's in a Google or an aerial photo or something else that would help identify a location.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Roy. Any other questions or comments on this?
Yeah, Ryan, this is Craig out in Buckeye, if I may.
Yeah.
So Roy, kind of to your point, we do the same thing out here. We do like the little rise. We do like it a little bit more. Again, out here in the west side, we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. We got a lot of large farm equipment. So all of our adjustments that are outside of pavement, we like to make, for lack of a better term, a monument around our valves, just because we want to make sure that these machines can actually see them, and I'll say it nicely, are less likely to hit them and knock them out. But we do like to make them a monument, 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches up, for that exact reason that you get a swather come by, you want to make sure that he's not going to take it out when he goes over it. So we like them shown as you've proposed, even a little bit more. But again, we're kind of out in the west side. That's not a whole lot out here other than some large farm equipment.
Thank you, Craig. My recommendation, Roy, is going to be that this be a separate case, not a miscellaneous corrections case. But it sounds like there's some support for this to move forward and to look at and at least analyze options there on making these modifications. Are you willing to submit that as a case?
Certainly. Thank you very much, Ryan. And
Okay.
I appreciate everybody's input.
Thank you. And I didn't mean to cut off if there's anyone else that has comments that they want to make on this discussion before we move on.
I just had a question as to whether agencies are installing the Type C without any sort of concrete collar as shown here for the debris cap, if they still want that as an option, or if everyone's pretty much agreed that they do want a concrete collar around it. Because that would take away this option.
My only thought on that was whether the debris cap was being shown as potentially being added to something that was an existing condition where there's not already a concrete pipe collar. I don't know that that matters quite so much to me.
This may bring up the topic about the debris shields or caps in general. I know Chandler has not been using them for quite a while. I don't know what other agencies are still using them though. So just another thought.
That's a great question. And if this case is presented and we want to include both these details in that discussion, that they're somewhat related, although different ideas about the collar versus the debris cap. Perhaps that's something that the water working group can vet on how frequently a debris cap is being used and whether it still merits a place in the details. Okay, if there's no other questions or comments on that particular item, then I think we'll move on to the next agenda item. Item number 8. Case 22-02, revisions to detail 260. Let's see here. I'm trying to remember what this one is.
This was Warren's case.
Okay. Yeah, Warren, if you want to remind us what's being proposed and walk us through these changes.
Sure, Ryan. This was brought up at the last meeting as this retrofit driveway detail has been used pretty widely throughout the valley, as far as I know. In particular in Chandler, it has been used in many cases for alleys, local driveways, and so on, but it has been used for commercial driveway entrances in it. And the existing detail only has the thickness for alley in residential. So the thought was to add a thickness for a commercial driveway. So after our discussion last month, it seemed like as other agencies may have a thicker than 8-inch minimum. So I had added that allowance for that case, but at least we have the 8-inch minimum.
Okay, so the main idea of this case is to first clarify that the retrofit driveway or alley entrance, that there will be separate, that it applies to all of these different cases: residential driveways, commercial driveways, or alley driveways or entrances. And then the second portion of it is to specify that the driveway thickness would be 6 inches for residential, and as currently proposed, 8 inches for commercial or alley entrances. And then, as you note, providing the comment there that it may be different depending on the direction of the agency.
That's correct.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments on this particular case? These are all so easy. Everyone's happy with what's proposed, I guess.
Yeah, I think it'll work.
Does anyone have concerns with the 8-inch thickness on this detail? Okay, not hearing any. I think we can give an opportunity for people to go back and review a little bit longer. But again, Warren, this looks like it will be pretty straightforward and we can move it into a vote in the not too distant future.
Thank you.
Okay, next agenda item. Let's see, item number 9, new and potential cases for 2022. Gordon, I feel like there was something just recently added that I'm forgetting about. Or did we already cover that? Was that the one?
I think that's the one we just talked about with Roy.
Okay. Okay, so for the new potential cases for 2022, the first one, the sidewalk cross slopes and calculations. McDOT had talked about this last year, I think was when it was first brought up. Carl, do you want to give us some insight into your perception here?
Yeah, we had a request from our construction group about accepting sidewalks. What slope would you accept? You have a maximum. You can't go more than 2%, but then there's nothing anywhere about a minimum. So I looked into the the MAG 340.3.9 on tolerances, and they had like a plus or minus half an inch from the plan. So I did this little little drawing here. This would be attached sidewalk to the back of curb, where you hold the sidewalk should match the top of curb. I mean, if it didn't, if it was off by half an inch, it would probably be rejected. But if that held, then you measured out, you know, a 4-foot sidewalk, a 5-foot sidewalk, 6, 8, and even 10 foot. I kind of came up with if it was a half inch, if there's a half inch tolerance of the sidewalk elevation, I then came up with what the slopes would be, and then the findings are down below. With a 4-foot, you would end up with about 2.5%, which is more than what we want, more than what ADA would require. So that wouldn't fly. But if you go to 5, 5 would be 2.33%. 6 would be 2.19. Then 8 would be 2.02, and 10 would be about 2%. The minimum, so and that's where we're getting at. If it was a half inch down, you can see that you're going to get a slope of 4 foot of about 0.45%, a 5 foot 0.676, 0.81, 8 0.97, and 10 at 1.08. So we felt that a slope between 0.5% and 2% would be something acceptable, and that's what our inspectors now go on. Now, I guess what I'm getting at, or why I'm bringing it to MAG, is do you want to put a minimum on crosswalk slope? I know there's sometimes if it's too flat, it doesn't shed water, it's slippery. It could cause other problems with concrete, with water standing. The water should shed off a sidewalk. It shouldn't create a bird bath. So that's what I'm coming at. And I haven't marked up our detail yet on sidewalk, but I could and bring it forward if you want to add a minimum slope to sidewalk.
Okay. Thank you, Carl. I guess my first comment that I'll make or thought that I'll share is that I think that the 0.5% slope that you list as a minimum is appropriate. Like I would support that. I think that there's perhaps a bigger question we need to ask, which is if the tolerances in MAG specification section 340.3.9 apply to sidewalks, if the half-inch tolerance is applicable, because then we have conflicting elements. Either the tolerance being accepted means that the sidewalk cross slope is not ADA compliant, or to make sure that something's ADA compliant means the tolerances listed aren't really applicable in this case. So I guess that's kind of a question I've got. And if when we were to propose modifying the detail, if we need to identify that those tolerances are modified for something like a sidewalk with ADA compliance, something along those lines.
I didn't look it up, but I believe it says that you have a 1/2 inch tolerance per the plans, and it didn't necessarily specify vertical or horizontal. It said within a 1/2 inch they use as a tolerance. So I might have interpreted.
This is Gregory with Youngtown. The 1/2 inch cross slope tolerance is ADA compliant.
Can you expound on that?
Well, ADA has its own details for sidewalks and slopes, minimum and maximums, and the half-inch cross would meet their requirements per their details.
The 0.5%, you're saying?
Correct, correct.
Yes, okay. You're not referring to the 1/2 inch tolerance though.
The 0.5% for the slope, Ryan.
Right.
Okay?
Yes, thank you. Other questions, comments, discussion points?
This is Warren. Just one other piece of information when you look at this. I mean, obviously, yeah, like you said, Carl, we don't want ponding, or we want it to drain properly, but you also have running slope to take into account too. So that allows for some slopes in the different direction to drain. And there are, transitions where the sidewalk may have to meet up to something else that might be a grade going a different direction. So you might have a flat area, but still has a running slope kind of thing.
That's a great point. I think then that brings into question how the detail is interpreted as a standard detail or typical cross slope. The cross slope would be between a certain minimum and a certain maximum. But you're right, there's certainly instances where the design might be intentionally altered due to longitudinal slopes or other, elements associated with matching existing conditions. It's a great point.
Hey, Ryan, it's Craig out in Buckeye.
Go ahead, Craig.
Just a thought on there. Typically, and I'll throw typically out quite a few times, the design is set for 2%. So if we're set for 2% and we've got a tolerance of a 1/2 inch, maybe it would be best on the detail just to say that our minimum slope will be a 0.5%, where our max not to exceed is 2%. So we'll have a target slope, but from that point, we can actually work with the tolerances. We're trying to work with the typical target slope of 2%. Out here, we've actually pitched our sidewalks in some cases away from the road because we've got existing conditions that we have to work with. But I think as long as we're not going to exceed the 2% or go less than a 0.5%, from what the typical target is going to be, I think that, if we could maybe put language in the detail that the target is going to be whatever percent is per the design plans, not to exceed 2% with a minimum of 1/2, 1, whatever it wants to be. But I think the design is going to be what controls your target cross slope.
Would it make sense to remove the 1/2 inch tolerance from the specs and just rely on the slopes?
I don't want to say yes without thinking about it for a while, but if we have on the detail a maximum and a minimum slope, I don't think that it would be a bad thing until you get something like what Carl mentioned, if you have a sidewalk that is below top of curb.
Well, the detail, the sidewalk detail shows 1.5%. And I believe it was put that way purposely, because if you try to tell someone to build something at 2%, there's a good chance that the soil or the concrete's going to move or shift or whatever, and you could end up with more than 2%. So we set it at 1.5%. In some cases, it says 1.5% desirable, 2% maximum. But I think we want that 1/2 inch tolerance. I think that's reasonable. If you want to get really picky, it's not like we're machining something that to perfection with the concrete. But we could add to that statement that in all cases it shall meet ADA requirements.
Yeah, I think it's worth looking at that specification to see that the tolerances is identified, as you mentioned, that the ADA requirements may mean that those tolerances are reduced.
Yeah. Yeah, because it looks like if you gave them half an inch up on some of those sidewalks, you'd be more than 2%. I'm not sure. I guess I'd have to look at it. If you said it, you tried to build it at 1.5%, and you gave them half an inch, I could kind of go through that exercise and see if you'd still be within less than 2% on those sidewalks. But I think, yeah, there's a maximum cross slope of 2%. Actually, I've gotten into it with some of the building officials where, and I believe it says it's 2% maximum in any direction. So you could combine a cross slope with a running slope, and you could end up with something steeper than 2%. Yeah, that's something I'll probably have to look into.
Carl, at this time, is there a specific change that you're considering proposing? You mentioned proposing a minimum slope on this detail.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much just putting a minimum on the sidewalk, and possibly it would extend to the curb ramps too. I have to kind of look at them too.
It sounds like this is a case that if proposed, will probably need quite a bit of discussion and review to ensure we're complying with all the ADA requirements and the different ways that the detail may be used, and with longitudinal slopes and cross slopes and whatnot. So I think you're welcome to propose it as a case. I do think it'll take some discussion and how it evolves throughout a number of different meetings. It may change whether it's a specification update or a detail update or a little bit of both. So I think you're welcome to propose that case, and we can continue discussing it though.
Sure. Yeah. Let's go ahead and make it a case then, and I'll try to gather some more stuff and do some modifications to our details and the spec, and bring it back next month.
Okay.
Hello, Ryan. This is Brian with AGC.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
We definitely support. I wouldn't say a lot of change. I was involved in where this originated at, and the reason we asked, it's more clarification. It wasn't an ADA issue. We were contractors were ripping out concrete sidewalk at 1.3% slope because it wasn't exactly 1.5% when they put their smart level on it, and they said that there was zero tolerance in that slope. And that's when we asked Maricopa County to get us clarifications, and then we just want to go with them clarifications through MAG.
Great. Thank you for the background, Brian. That's helpful, and understanding how the detail or specification was being utilized helps provide some context in what potential changes we might need to consider. So thank you.
Yeah, that's a good comment, Brian. We should just put on there the maximum and minimum, and just say, the contractor's got to figure out how good he is, and if he can meet that, is his tolerances. And maybe in the notes add a note that's specifically saying that anything over 2% will be not acceptable. In other words, just state that there's no tolerance allowed over 2%.
And that's exactly right. That, as Carl alluded to, it was put at 1.5% to try to give them the tolerance, right? But that's why it's specifically that, because we weren't going to give them 2% and then give them a half inch above 2%.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. You try to help out the situation, and you cause a problem.
So as it is now, if they use that half-inch tolerance, they can exceed 2% if they start with 1.5. So that's a problem.
Okay, any additional discussion on this item? Okay, if not, then Carl, we'll look forward to you presenting that as a case with some potential changes. I'd send it to a working group, but I think we disbanded the sidewalks and ramps working group previously. So you might be on your own to work on that and then work with the whole committee for those potential changes, unless someone's wanting to start that back up. I didn't think so. Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
The second potential case is water valve abandonment detail. I don't recall who was presenting this one.
That's me, Ryan.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this came up just after our water and sewer working group. And I wanted to see if there was interest in adding this detail into MAG. I've seen a similar detail like this used on various plans for water main replacement projects. And just recently it came up on a RFI for a valve replacement project. Obviously those don't have a plan set. So that was an RFI request from one of our contractors to use the Mesa detail, which sounds like we've done in the past. So that it was requested to add this as a detail into our Chandler specs, but I thought, well, why not see if MAG wants it? So then we do it the right way. So anyway, if there's interest in working on this detail, we can tackle that in water and sewer if there's interest.
Warren, we would like to talk to you about that and work with you on it. I could talk to our water services, but they've asked me about a valve abandonment detail. So yes,
Okay.
I'd be glad to step up and help you and work through our water services department.
Thanks, Dan.
Paul's giving his thumbs up too, so looks like there's some interest, Warren.
All right, and let's take it forward. Jim, sound good?
Yeah, that's a good place to start with it. So.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the third miscellaneous, well, I guess that was it. There's two miscellaneous, I'm sorry, not miscellaneous, potential cases for 2022 that we've talked about. Are there any other potential cases that someone would like to discuss at this time?
Ryan, there was one that Jim brought up at the last meeting, and that was changing the 1-year warranty to a 2-year warranty, and didn't know if there was still interest in that.
Yeah, and that's actually our next agenda item. We have that as a separate agenda item.
All right, excuse me for not looking ahead.
No, that's okay.
Hey, this is Carl with Maricopa County. I sent out an inquiry to some of you guys yesterday about the design vehicle. Currently, Maricopa County uses a WB50 as a design vehicle, but it's no longer in the green book. You have to go back. You have to go back several years to actually find the templates for a WB50. And so we're just kind of wondering about other agencies. Have you considered a different design vehicle? And if you've implemented anything, have you had any, how's it gone? I know ADOT has, I think, a WB67, and you can tell on their returns, they're really large, almost too much so. But I just kind of putting it out there if there's anybody that has looked at a bigger return. And I guess the concern I got is we get more and more trucks, and we got these really small radiuses, or even our current standards may not be big enough. So I thought I'd kind of throw that out and see if I did get a response back from Ryan. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I think that's a good discussion item. And until we have a specific proposed change, then I'm not sure it's a case for the specifications or details. it relates more to a design standard as opposed to a change to specification or detail. If as you go through that, you want to propose a change to a detail, then we can talk about that as a potential new case. Otherwise, I think it's a fine discussion item that we can have, and you can continue to solicit feedback, and we can talk about that, and we can take it from there. I'm just not seeing that as a new case quite yet,
No,
based on where we're
yeah,
at.
it could have a big impact on a lot of these standard details. So that's why why I think about it as a possible future case, but at this point, just a discussion item.
Yeah, Ryan, this is Craig out in Buckeye.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I could piggyback on what you just said, I completely agree. We've talked about this a number of times over the years, that these are actually construction details where the WB50, the template for the turning radius, that's more of a design. Now, with that said, Carl, I do appreciate that we're actually in the process of revising our standards, and I raised the question to the guy who's working on our design standards for roadways, and he was like, I had no idea that it was no longer in the AASHTO book. So you piqued our attention, and we're starting to do some digging. If you've got any other additional information, I'd appreciate it. But for this committee and this item, I believe that's more of a design as opposed to a standard detail and standard construction specifications item.
Okay, what we're actually doing, we're using auto turn and putting in the bigger turn vehicle turn templates and seeing how it interacts with our standard intersection and radii and so forth. So I'd be happy to share that as we get into that some more. Share that with some of you who have an interest in it, and try to get some feedback and discussion going on it.
Yeah, that would definitely be something that we would be interested in. Appreciate it. Thank you, Carl.
Sure.
Okay, let's move on to item number 10, which is the discussion on extending the warranty period. As briefly mentioned, it was discussed in the last meeting. We had talked a little bit about that, and I know Craig had provided some information, and I think Roy, was it you that we had already implemented something like this, and we were going to have some more discussion on that today?
I included in the packet the email that Craig sent on some of the research that they did. And I think at our last meeting, maybe it was AJ who said that they had already gone to a 2-year warranty. So maybe he has some information on that.
I think Surprise is at 2 years too, so.
Gordon, the town of Gilbert been considering a 2-year warranty, but we haven't actually moved to it yet.
Well, Craig, I'm not sure. I don't recall who had initiated this discussion last month, but obviously you provided a bunch of information here in the email. Do you want to kind of walk through what your guys' experience has been on this for us, and kind of why you went to the change, and maybe what kind of feedback you got from the development community as you've implemented the change?
It's not really a change. This is the way since I've been out here. We've had 2-year warranties on these. We do have one specific development that they've got their own standards essentially, and they're down to a 1-year warranty. But the rest of the city is 2 years. And we've had pretty good luck with it. What we're finding and I believe this is kind of valley-wide, is at about the year mark, you're about 60 to 70% built out. So you've got still a little bit more development and more structure, more houses that need to go up in that amount of time. So the 2 years actually gives us that extra. It allows the development to completely fully build out before we go back and we start looking at any damages or anything like that that's taken place. So for us, it's worked out fairly well.
And you haven't had a little bit of pushback, obviously, with one particular developer creating a development agreement that changed that standard, but for the most part, people just live with it.
Yeah, so the development that did the pushback, again, that was out in the Verrado area, and that actually came through with their master plan and with their development when it was originated. So other than them, like I said, everybody else is they stick with the 2-year warranty, and we really haven't had pushback. Where our pushback comes from is when the warranty begins. Once we get to a point in the project, we have an acceptance and warranty process that the developer / contractor begins, and until they get that acceptance and warranty letter, which you're actually showing on the screen here, that's the date of their begin. That's when their warranty begins. So in terms of the 2 years, we really haven't had pushback. So it's worked really well for us.
Okay, thank you. AJ, you mentioned that your agency is looking at or considering a modification also. Do you have anything you want to share on that same process of why you guys are proposing it or why you're considering it?
So we've had conversations in the past about it for the same reasons that Craig brought up. It's just the 1-year warranty is up, and then all the damage occurs to usually it's the flat work, the curb gutter, or the sidewalk. So just the 1-year warranty is usually, the civil's going first before the damage occurs. So it's not really catching much of anything. It's more of a it makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside, but it doesn't actually provide us much use. So we've had conversations in the past about it. It's kind of gone cold over the last probably about year, but I'm sure it'll come up again.
Hey, I would just like to say, as a contractor, the quality of materials, the methods and means that we've developed over the last 15 years makes a 2-year warranty no bigger liability than a 1-year warranty used to be. Really, we do a lot better job now.
Paul, I'm glad you said that, because if you told me that you developed all the processes and procedures to go just past 1 year and that you developed it based on a 1-year warranty, I might be concerned.
From when I started in this industry to now, the quality of workmanship, believe it or not, and the means and methods have matured to pretty much sustainable stuff. Anyway, those are my 2 cents.
And Ryan, one other thing I'd like to add, what we've also found out here too, and Paul, I think you'll probably attest to this, is with this 2-year warranty, contractors realize, hey, I've got to warranty this item for 2 years. So to Paul's point, hey, my sidewalk calls for, let's call it a Class B or a Class C concrete. I'm going to put in a Class A just because.
There you go.
I don't want to come back in a year because it's actually going to cost me more to do removals and replacements than to pay a little bit extra up front. So, Paul, to your point, what we're doing is we're actually getting a much better product right now for 2 reasons. The contractor doesn't want to come back and do replacements after the warranty, and our materials are just better.
Yeah, our materials are so much superior. I mean, when you had Transhite water line and the big truck had run into a job that had been there for 2 years and break the 12-inch, and you're like, what happened? And the materials, everything are so much more forgiving, and I think the workmanship overall is just completely increases into better all the time. So anyway, I don't think a two-year warranty really is anything that anyone should worry about unless they're worried about what they're doing.
Thank you, Paul. Looks like we have a
Yep.
couple people with hands up. David.
Yeah, back when we first started this, I know I talked to you guys on this thing, so I sent Craig, Jim, you and Gordon our specs, but we've been in a 2-year warranty now for several years, actually almost 4 or 5 years. And we've had no pushback at all on it. And like Jim and everybody was saying, Craig was saying, we've had no pushback on it. It's a better product out there. We do have a couple development agreements that are in a 1-year warranty, and but it gives us 2 full cycles of weather, summer and winter. And we've been finding, it's been working great, and we've had no pushback. And it's actually in our standards, our council acceptance, and our packet that when they come in for concept reviews, it's actually in that, so they don't have any questions. They automatically agree to it.
That's good. That's good to hear, guys. I think Ryan, I was the one that started this.
Okay.
I agree with Paul about his comments about materials being better, but I think lately with the labor issues we're having, I'm running into huge workmanship problems, and that's one reason that kind of jump started me to start looking at this. Is we've got streets with a lot of checking in it, and it's just. My biggest issue with the warranty is that after 1 year, I'm getting lots of settlement behind the curb, like around J boxes for streetlights, and having a hard time getting people to come back and backfill that and properly recompact it. So, that's true. You need like 2 cycles of weather to find some of this stuff, and a year just isn't enough time to catch some of this stuff.
Thank you, Jim. Bashira.
Hey, I was wondering, the warranty, I've heard a couple of things. Some of the folks are saying warranted on damaged items. And I was wondering what that is about versus warranting, workmanship and material. And so that was my question. And also, how do you warranty drainage stuff if it's Arizona? Let's say it didn't rain for a year and a half, or we didn't have a huge rain, and all in a sudden, the 3rd year when the warranty ran out, you have a huge rain and come to find out that this thing was not built right.
Yeah, Basha, this is Craig. You got some very valid points there, and we're not going to catch everything. We're not going to catch everything. I think the intent here is to catch the bulk. In terms of subdivisions, when you get a subdivision come in, you're going to have an enormous amount of heavier construction material driving on, just a local road sidewalk. And anything that, really gets damaged will need to get taken care of. But in terms of drainage, I think that's more of a construction item. And I don't think we're going to catch everything, like I said, but I think we catch a pretty big percentage of it.
Thank you, Craig. Brian.
Ryan, as Craig alluded to in brochure, a lot of times damaged items from the home builder is really not warranty. It's damaged items by the developer or so forth. He also alluded to a struggle that us contractors have that, we pave a street or put concrete down 3 years ago, and then we go out and do a walk, and now our warranty period, whether it be 1 year or 2 years, I happen to be like Paul in agreement that 2 years shouldn't be a problem, but now it's been 5 years since I put the paving down. So it's when does that warranty period start? After my pavement and concrete's accepted, or after final acceptance by the city to the developer? And that's where we struggle of how long are we warranting workmanship and materials. versus damage. To Craig's point, a lot of developers, I know contractors are doing higher strength concrete, but it's at the developer's request that we do that so they don't have to pay for the damage when they drop their trusses and garbage cans on top of the concrete. So they're trying to save them some money from us going back. It's really not the contractor, because if we go do it and there's no activity on it, we're fine with what MAG states the strength of concrete is.
Great, thank you for sharing. Any responses or additional comments, questions from people? It seems to me that there's a lot of interest in perhaps changing the MAG specification on warranty. Jim, I don't know if this is a case that you want to work on and present, or if there's someone else that wants to sponsor a case on this, but it seems like there's a number of agencies that have already incorporated or are looking at incorporating a 2-year warranty. And it seems like our industry representatives have indicated that this shouldn't be of a significant concern. And it sounds like there may be some opportunities to review what the warranty beginning dates are as part of this process also.
Yeah, I can take a shot at it. I've got some examples now from other cities. But like I've had discussions with Brian, we got to put some stipulations and more definitions in there, like when it starts, as best as we can, I think. So I think we can come up with something.
Great, thank you, Jim. Okay, any additional discussion on that before we move on? No. Okay, thank you. Let's go to item number 11 on the agenda, our working group reports, and we can start with the water sewer working group. Jim?
Thanks, Ryan. So we met on January 18th. Had a pretty good turnout for the first meeting. So we just basically talked about, Gordon did his spiel on the new 2022 specs and details. One of the potential cases we're working on is modifying the shock block, thrust block on a wet barrel fire hydrant. Seems like there's some differences in manufacturers where they recommend putting it, so we might need to modify and put a range on that in the MAG detail, which was 360-2. One of the ones I brought up was a clarification on when reinforcement is needed on a manhole cast in place base. Right now, it just says for deep sewers greater than 20 feet, but it doesn't really define where that's measured to. You know, is it to the bottom of the base or top of the pipe? So that should be simple enough. I just want to clarify that in the notes. Another one we talked about, another potential case is a maximum water pipe joint deflection. I know some manufacturers have recommendations on their pipe, but I think from a constructability, we've had some issues with it on some radiuses in residential areas. But I think we want to maybe put some installation or construction guidelines in there. The other case we talked about is coming up with a specialty pressure test for sewer force mains instead of going with the 200 PSI, which seems to be a little overkill from what I'm hearing from engineers. We want to look at that. And we talked about maybe coming up with a standard air relief valve detail. The other thing we talked about is for videos, for sewer videos, there doesn't seem to be a standard for the measurement tool that's on the camera measuring device. We're having we've had some difficulty reading some of these videos. I don't know what everybody else has on that, but we might want to come up with some kind of standards for that, what they've got to provide on the gauge so that it can be clearly identified. See if you know you're in a settlement area. And
Hey, Jim, I want to comment on that. I have a project that they videoed to look for a manhole that was 360 feet downstream and missed it by 28 feet until I got someone with the sonar. But I agree with that 100%. Some kind of standard on that. Good idea.
yeah, I mean, because it's pretty well commonplace now to video like the cameras instead of the, you know, lamping, the old school stuff. So I think we just need to revisit that, come up with some standards. And then we had the other thing, last thing we had some discussion on meter boxes. We seem to be having a lot of them breaking. These are the polymer concrete ones. So I don't know. It's just because of all the crazy activity and development, but that was about it. So our next meeting will be on February 15th at 1:30.
Great, thank you. Looks like you've got a lot of discussion going on, a lot of opportunities to consider improvements. So thank you for your work and the
Yeah.
whole working group.
Thank you. Yeah, and Warren, you can bring that valve abandonment detail in.
Okay, Jim, thanks.
Okay, next working group. Who's up next?
I think that's a concrete asphalt materials working group.
Yep, thank you.
You can see the meeting notes were included in your packet. I mentioned some of these things as potential cases at the last standards committee meeting too. So we had some good discussions on some of them. Specifically, you know, trying to incorporate increase the usage of some of the recycled materials where applicable in base materials and maybe CLSM. There was a pretty good discussion from several agencies about individual projects in the recent past, and some of them longer than 5 or 6 years where some of the recycled materials had been used. So we're going to take a look at trying to maybe put in a little different wording, a little different class about base materials, allowing a higher percentage of recycled material or something that's 100% recycled to be used in base applications. The other thing we talked about was section 311 and 312, which are the cement treated subgrades and bases. We redid that several years ago, and now that it's been out and being used, there's a couple of things that we need to look at, specifically trying to eliminate the cylinder compression testing that's done, sampling and done out in the field, since these are such low compressive strength applications. Trying to accurately sample, fabricate, cure, handle, test something that's only 300, 400, 500 psi. It's really difficult to do, and we're going to work on some language to propose going to a spread measurement. Most of the time, those compressive strengths are just to verify that the proper cement content was used, that matched the original mix design. So trying to find a different way. There are better ways to do that and easier ways to verify that. We did talk about the shotcrete spec. I don't know that we have anything to do there. I kind of just threw it out, see if anybody's interested in dealing with that. One of the other things that was brought up by Rob Godwin was having difficulties with what he called sandy ABC applications. I mean, I would define that as something that is potentially a little higher sand content, ABC with a higher sand content, but more importantly, something that's very, very clean, virtually no compactable fines in the material, but it still meets the gradational requirements and all the other requirements of the MAG specification. We do see this periodically. A lot of times it comes from maybe new pits or new cells that somebody opens up, because some of the top layers a lot of times have cleaner materials, I guess I would say, before you get actually down into the base. But We had talked about several years ago about the potential of changing the PI requirements down on the bottom end of the specification or increasing the allowable fines to try to get a more compactable product, but there didn't seem at that point in time anybody had much interest in that. And I'm getting the same feeling now that everyone maintains the concern of getting too high on PI and then having expansion issues with the material. So we'll see if maybe we have some more discussion about that in our upcoming meetings. We did also, for everybody's edification, we did decide, since we're going to probably stay virtual meetings now, it doesn't really make sense, or there's no real reason for us to meet at noon. Back when we used to meet together, we actually had something to eat together before we got started. So now we're just, so we've decided to move our committee meeting time back to 1 p.m. That I think that'll be more amenable to most people. And although we continue to have pretty good attendance to the meetings. Next meeting would be February 17th, then at 1 p.m.
Thank you, Jeff. Peter, outside working,
Thank you.
outside right away.
Yeah, we had our meeting also on the 17th, and I'm glad that we now know that the concrete and materials, asphalt, will be moving to 1 o'clock. We were afraid you're going to move it up an hour. We moved ours back a half hour so we wouldn't have any conflicts anymore. So I think we're good both directions now. We had our meeting on the 17th, or on the 20th, I'm sorry, and we've talked already about the landscape details and standards. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is, for at least talking purposes, we're going to start giving those details a number, since there's no series assigned. We picked the 600 series because it's not being used right now. And if you all like it, we can keep it. If, as it gets closer, you want to change it, we can always do that. But we thought we better start putting a series number on those, get the discussion earlier rather than later, especially if we're going to vote on it potentially in a few months. So that was one thing we talked about. The submitted cases, we've already gone through what's going on there. New cases that we are actually have moving forward. We still do have the vegetated to rock bioswale case moving forward. We're still waiting on a bit of drafting to get done, waiting for some personnel to get cut loose to be able to do that and work on the drafting. So that will be coming out. The other ones will be the irrigation standard revisions and details for those. And the working group that's working on that, Zach Kojat with City of Mesa is kind of helping on that effort. They are meeting later now into February, and they're going to be trying to get those out. I don't know if we're going to have them for sure in March, but that's what we're shooting for right now, is to be able to submit that case for those ones in March. It could potentially shift to April, but I think March is still looking pretty good. So we'll be able to finish that complement of not just the landscape, but have the irrigation ones worked out simultaneously. Other details we're working on. Last year, we had the spillway, we had the sedimentation basin. We took out the spillway component. We're going to be going ahead and developing the spillway component. We just need to get some drafting moving on that. We've got some go-bys from both ADOT and SRP on that. I was sent another one. I think it was Avondale or Buckeye. I can't remember which. Buckeye, I think it was. Sent me those. So we've got that moving forward. Keith Kesty, he wasn't able to attend this meeting, but he's working on the detention tank criteria. Again, we're starting with the City of Chandler's base detail working forward. We do have some contacts. I'm sorry, Keith, was he at that meeting? No, he was not. But we've also got some contacts with some consultants and other people who have been working on that. So that will move forward. The dry wheel details, I resurrected those and actually started moving those forward, and we'll combine in the dome structure overflows. So we are very busy right now trying to get some new cases moving forward. Hopefully March, you'll see the first ones coming out. We'll try to be progressing all through July to get those cases to the committee. Our next meeting will be on February 17th also, but we've moved ours up to 11 a.m. So we now have a bit of a gap between that and the materials concrete and asphalt working groups. Please address any questions you have.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Okay.
All right, item number 12 on our agenda is request for future agenda items. These are topics or issues of interest that we may want to discuss in future meetings. Does anyone have anything they'd like to bring up at this time? Okay, item number 13, comments from the committee and other general discussion.
I did have a question that's come up from, it actually came through Arizona Public Service. And this is dealing with concrete and concrete mix designs. And maybe Jeff or somebody who, or any of the agencies can help on this. APS has been told by I think some of the smaller vendors that getting a sealed mix design, a PE reviewed and sealed mix design is becoming more and more difficult because of changes in concrete properties or pit properties, that there's been a lot of variance, that ASR is starting to become a bigger issue. And I wanted to see if anybody else has had that actually happening, or if they know anything about this.
Peter, I hadn't heard that, but you know, everybody is super busy. I would think that certainly all the engineering groups that I'm aware of are just slammed with things. So it's possible that some of those smaller projects are having more trouble, you know, actually, you know, getting the work done, getting the evaluations and so on done on it. When it comes to the ASR scenario,
because of they were saying it was a fly ash issue. There's less availability of fly ash, or it's fluctuating.
At times, the supplies do fluctuate because power plants are continuing to shut down off and on kind of things, and we are looking for alternative materials. Several of us are bringing materials from 3 or 4 states into the valley here now to try to stay up with the supplies. I don't think the actual reactivity of the local aggregates have changed. It may be their concern is fly ash is the most economical way to mitigate that potential ASR. So there might be some concerns about, you know, maintaining that supply. But I'm gonna tell you, gentlemen, we're getting busier and busier, and we already have some issues with supplies of materials that you're already seeing on your projects. Some of them can be attributable probably to the supply chain kinds of issues that we've seen, but you're also going to see that on some of the materials too. There's just a lot of demand on those projects going forward, and unfortunately, some of the smaller, you know, repair things and so on, that, you know, they have trouble getting working their way into the system and getting done.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I think you may have, showing up to your next meeting or calling into your next meeting, a couple of the civil engineers with Arizona Public Service. They're very interested in the working group and learning more about that. So I think they may be wanting to participate.
Well, another thing I'll talk about, and I did mention it in our last standards committee meeting with the city of Phoenix on a similar issue, being concerned about what is being called third-party mixer trucks that are you know, coming into the valley now because of, I would say, more not necessarily the shortage of vehicles, but the shortage of drivers to drive those vehicles showing up. And you're with the semiconductor plants that are gone. We've got on-site batch plants sitting there trying to supply those projects. That takes a lot of equipment in order to supply the needs for some of those. You are going to see, and we are seeing those third parties. And when I say that, they're mixer trucks that aren't associated with a commercial ready mix producer. It's more of an owner operator kind of vehicle kind of thing. So City of Phoenix has been very concerned about that, and the industry has been working with them to again, point out the mag specification requirements and so on about that. And some of that has to do with the smaller projects and small repairs and things like that that need to get done, or having trouble actually working their way into the system to get materials. So we are going to see some of those things going forward.
Yeah, we had a call from, not me directly, but one of our engineers from the city of Phoenix Materials. Forget the gentleman's name, but yeah, they're seeming to be pretty concerned about that, those third-party truckers. So.
Well, Jim, I'll again remind the group that MAG section 725 is pretty clear that if you're going to have a ready mix batch plant, it has to be certified, and mixer trucks hauling concrete have to also be certified. And there's a couple of ways you can get that done. We certainly, as an industry, want to maintain those, the quality of those vehicles, the quality of that going on, because many times that's what's mixing our concrete for us. Most of the batch plants are dry batched, and they're relying on those trucks to do the majority of the actual concrete mixing. So it's very important that that they're in good shape, that they've been recently inspected by an engineer, someone who's versed in looking at that equipment, and that they have a certification and the owners are maintaining that equipment. But unfortunately, the city agencies, or the agencies, are the ones who are probably going to have to police those out on the job site. When a truck shows up on the job site that is not able to discharge concrete, or the concrete doesn't look like it's mixed or whatever, that material on that truck's going to have to be rejected off the site.
Yeah, it's a concern. I mean, we're trying to do, bottom line is you got to now really make sure your concrete's getting tested. But so we're trying to increase that, but then there's a shortage of, testing, available techs for the testing lab. So this whole shortage thing is really getting concerning.
Hey Jeff, this is Arvid. Let me chime in on two things too. With regard to this topic, we order every couple weeks 10, 20 yards of neat cement that we use to fill in your space on the inside of casing. And the dilemma that is real.
You might know about the time Arvid wants to say something. Now he's gone out.
You guys lose me?
Yeah, Arvid,
Is
I
that
think
Darth Vader?
Hey, Darth, yeah, it's hard to hear you.
It's only speeding. Never mind.
Thank you, Arvid. You can go back and watch that on the video and see how you sounded, just for entertainment purposes. Arvid, we'd be happy to have your feedback and comments of what you're saying. If you want to email that out to the group, you're welcome to do that, and we can discuss that in the next working group meeting or in our next committee meeting. So thank you for your time on that. Was there any other comments for the committee or general discussion items before we adjourn today? No? Okay. Well, thank you everyone for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.